haven't. When you get a chance, send me a copy of that mic. I mean, where I can buy it.
Okay, and we are live, Dr. Webb, so I just wanted to give you a chance to embarrass yourself like all of us do. I know you're experienced at this, but now you just reminded me when I first started doing these lives. You know how many times I was live and I didn't realize it until I
Oh my
went back and
goodness.
like, oh my God, it was live for like 5 minutes before I even thought I was.
I love
So
it. I love it.
it,
Well, the audience, the viewing audience gets to see us as we are, and we want to be authentic, right? We don't want to come on live and all of a sudden we've switched on a
well,
personality that is not who we are. Yeah.
you know, and I just because this is where the conversation's going, I have a friend who's a master marketer. She's got
Hmm.
a large Facebook group. I mean, she teaches people how to build groups.
Excellent.
And almost every day, she has a video of her turtle or her cat doing some stupid stuff. And then every Sunday, she bakes cinnamon rolls and because, and I was like,
I
that's,
feel like I just gained a pound just thinking about eating a
oh,
cinnamon.
I hate it, but I can't not watch it. And I'm like, my mouth is watering. And,
Oh,
but the thing is that she is authentic. That's how, and that's what she teaches people. She's like, this is me. If you love me, be part of the group, you'll learn something. If not, you don't like watching, cinnamon buns. But anyway, so yes, everybody, welcome entrepreneurs. My name is Joe DeChara, and I've been running these How You Can Win at Business. Actually, How You Can Win Big at Business. I added the big, keep mentioning that. And so this is a special thing that I started like a week or two ago about where I am giving people a slice of some of my favorite people, information that can, and this is all about, it does come down to business, but sometimes we don't even talk about business. And because one of the things I didn't learn in CPA school was that mindset and energy and our environment all contribute, have something to do, factor into our success.
got
So
it.
it's like my girlfriend says, if she's like, if you're not healthy, how are you going to run your business? And then how are you going to help? So it all matters. And so today I am happy to introduce my friend, my client, the beautiful Dr. Elnora Webb.
Thank you.
And I don't use those compliments with everybody. You are beautiful on the outside and on the inside. And so we started with the authenticity. And I'm sorry, but I am going to give you a chance to speak. But we were talking about how do you want me to introduce you? And we decided that let's just tell them the truth. I met Dr. Webb, I think it was less than a year ago.
Correct.
Yeah, it was last, I think, October or November, or no, it was December. So really, it was December, right? Is that,
It
wow.
was around that time.
It seems like years ago, to be
It
honest.
does. It
But,
does. That's
but
what
so,
happens when you're meeting someone that you connect with, where there's synergy. It's
well,
like
that's true.
it's,
And it's like we've known each other for a long time. And that's
yes.
how I feel. But I think a lot of people get that from you. And so she hired me to do her bookkeeping and her accounting. And I've gotten to, have some really deep, interesting conversations with her. So deep that I don't even remember what they are. They're like, I know they're in there, but it's like you're very profound, and I love talking to you. And I've been looking forward to interviewing you like this, so just so I could learn some more. And like I said, share you with people that are in my group and on this. So, Dr. Webb, welcome
Thank you.
to Bedrock. And how are you? You're in California, right?
I'm in California, and literally, I'm on what we call our Lake Merritt. It's really a lagoon, but we call it Lake Merritt. And if at any given moment, you may hear loud sounds coming from beautiful people who are a part of the broader protest across the country and beyond, and also individuals who are celebrating, and not necessarily that they're happy, they're celebrating to honor the fact that our ancestors, many of our ancestors, even those of us who didn't even know we had ancestors who were slaves, and so there's that gathering. And what I like being able to look out at this 4+ acre park and see this beautiful vista of lake on, or the lagoon on one side, and then adjacent to it, these people gathering, is that people are being mindful. The majority of them have face masks on, and they're 6 foot apart. I don't know what's going to happen later on this afternoon when more convene, but hopefully they will be mindful. And the diversity of those folks is absolutely brilliant. It's like what we wish for, across the ethnic spectrum, across the gender spectrum, age, abilities, people in wheelchairs, as well as so-called people who are able to walk, able body in that regard. So it's a beautiful diversity of folks out there. So if you hear anything in the background, that's what's happening.
I think I hear some music. Is that
Yes.
okay? Hey,
Yes.
listen, it's the beat. We'll do the interview with the beat, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so you just brought out, I think, exactly what attracts me to you, because you're like, let's see the good in this. Like, look at all these people together. Too much of our time and effort is spent on, what's wrong, or, and I think it's built into us, our amygdala, to like focus on the bad because it was the fight or flight thing.
It's really interesting. I think for some of us, I think because it is so much, it's so pervasive, we think it's built into us. And so when someone comes along, whether it's me or someone else who's never wired that way, and so we don't start there, we don't even end there, then people say, oh, you're an anomaly. And I just wonder if most of it is socialized. Certainly we're wired, all of us are wired in a particular way, but there's so much across the board, whether it's the media on the one extreme that tries to actually engage in real journalism, but are so ratchet around trying to survive that they get caught up in the gaming of media, or whether it's the other extreme of we believe we've got a finite resources. And so if there's limited resources, we've got to engage in competition. And if we engage in competition, there's an assumption, if you have it, I can't have it. So I've got to get it from you. When we operate from a standpoint, there's enough for all of us. There's enough for everyone, literally, not figuratively. And the question is, how do we ensure that we function in a world context, life itself, where we share in a way that everyone has their basic needs met, whatever those basic fundamentals needs met are, housing, food, clothing, just a sense of well-being that will allow us to edify our souls so that we're actually healthy and not just physically attractive, but actually energetically inside, where no one sees unless they take the time to pay attention and sees that well-being. So I think it's part of what we talked about briefly. So we're going to talk about mindset. Mindset is so powerful. Literally, it really is responsible for over 95% of what we experience. Listen to me, I'm not exaggerating. We know from research that that we got a mind, right? And we tend to think that it's directly aligned with what's happening in the brain, when in fact, the mind is in every cell of the body. And we can find it energetically, even vibrating outside of the body. So the mind is extremely powerful. And for the sake of being able to think about the mind, what I and a number of my colleagues do across the planet is we think in terms of the intellectual mind, and we think in terms of the feeling mind. And what we know from research is that 95 to 99% of what we do daily, get this, 95 to 99% of what we do daily is driven by the emotional mind. I call that the heart mind. I call the intellectual mind that cognitive set of faculties. So we've got both. And most of us think that if I decide something, I plan it out, it's going to happen. Well, Interesting. However, short of actually being emotionally connected with that goal, the likelihood of us being successful in that regards is not very great. But when we connect it to our emotionals, and I don't mean being out of control, which people tend to equate to emotions. Emotions is so much of the driver of all of our lives, and it leads us to certain outcomes. That's why we say as educators, or we say as business leaders, or we say as practitioners, whether we're executive coaches or in other areas. I'm mentioning these areas because I'm a strategist, I'm an executive coach, I can go on and on. And we always remind people to feel. So when they decide on a fantasy goal, whatever it is, to in 10 years amass $50 million, within 10 years transform their community in a way that is actually additive and helps families and children. In whatever the goal is, feel it. Begin to imagine it. That's an intellectual faculty. Begin to reason how you can get there, but then feel that. That's the heart connection to the mind. Feel it. All of a sudden, it doesn't matter what barrier you're experiencing, because once you feel it and it's part of your passion, nothing gets in the way. We know that. We know that those who are leading, we know that from you in terms of your business, you've not wavered. The economy shifts and shifts happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. This is what I was explaining when so you said so much, and I'm like wrapped up in it, and I'm ingesting it all. I'll watch the replay again over and over so that I just you just keep throwing out all these nuggets. But you said so many things. But what you're telling me, so I have this belief that the amygdala is why when I go past a newsstand, I have to look. I have to look at the headline. I'm just drawn to it. But now what you're saying is maybe because I believe that is why it's happening. I think that's what you're saying.
I'm saying
It's from learned behavior
and an emotional connection to it. Belief and emotional connection to it. So we think, or let's say we just imagine, and then it takes on a form in our imagination, and then we begin to feel it. Then we begin to experience doing something related to that thought that's now a feeling. And then that behavior leads to certain responses from the environment that either reinforces or not that behavior. Typically, it reinforces the behavior. That's a whole nother conversation. And then, so then what it does, it reinforces that thought, that feeling, and subsequent behavior. Before we know it, we have a new habit, or we have a pre-existing habit that we continue. So you walk by that stand and you're drawn to it. Well, that's a habit. You can change that habit. You have that power. Each one of us does.
So that's what I was getting when you said, I was like, wait a second, you're talking about habits. And I know that there's ways to reverse habits. People do it all the time when they stop smoking.
Yes.
And what did I read? Atomic Habits recently. And it's just like one little shift, a little at a time. And then so now I'm going to stop looking at the newspaper headlines. I'm going to go right to the sports section. That's what I used to do. Much better. So I didn't give anyone a chance to really know, like, who you're a doctor, you're highly educated. Let's give us some background on who Dr. Webb is.
Well, first of all, what's most important about me is that I'm fortunate. I'm extremely fortunate. Throughout my life, I've been exceptionally fortunate. What does that mean? I've had housing. I've had food most of my life. I've had housing and food. Most of my life, I've had at least the ability to use my faculties in a way that directed me to do what was in my better interest most of the time. I was born to a 13-year-old who had been abused. I too was abused in that circumstance. And then I was put in foster care and was considered a throwaway child. I didn't belong to anybody. So at least 6 different distinct foster care settings, part of the ward of the state in California, and Southern California to be more specific. And I experienced a lot of different households, those that were extremely unhealthy is a nice way to put it, soft way to put it, and those that were just almost didn't even know I was there. But I brought an income to the household, so I had shelter. So I was fortunate. There's people who weren't so fortunate, and for a very short period, I was homeless, which most people don't know that. And yet, at no point did I believe I was my circumstances. That's part of my feeling like I was very fortunate, and I can't tell you why, because I have loved ones who ended up in prison. I have loved ones who, like me, did not end up in prison, who took whatever path that got them. And sometimes it was a zigzag path that got them to their areas of success. For me, it was always being conscious, reflective. Never assumed that I knew what I didn't know. And I would always pay attention to adults. And I won't go into all the details, but that's a whole nother conversation. And I'm pretty transparent, so I can come back for another interview if you'd like. But what's more powerful about me is that I was focused as a teenager on survival. I was told that I wouldn't live to the age of 20. I'm just a few months shy of 62. Go figure. I was told I was mentally retarded when I was in grade school. Well, fast forward, I was in 2 PhD programs at UC Berkeley. Go figure. And I was told a lot of things that didn't make sense. It had nothing to do with me. It had to do with the limited perceptions and mindsets of adults who were around me. And some of them really meant well for me, and yet they couldn't see my capacity. And that's why I say to people I coach, to people who I get to influence, even in a mild way, like those who are listening to this session, thanks to you, that you can exceed even your high expectations. It's not about where you're at or where you've been. It's where you choose to be. And as a result, I went from survival focus, and I went to college not because I thought I was smart. I went to college because I knew I wasn't smart and I needed housing. Someone said there was housing. Getting into an institution that had housing, all of a sudden, voila, I was safe. And I didn't know how to learn. So I had to figure out how to learn. I thought everybody around me knew. So I'm going to fast forward and jump over a lot. So
I just have to say something here, because I went to college because I didn't want to get a job. Okay. So.
and I say to people, it doesn't really matter why you want to go on to continue to learn. Whatever it is that leads you to higher education, leverage it, because literally it saved my life. It helped me understand that I could do more than just survive.
So,
yes.
And I know you were making a point, but I have to ask you this. So people directly told you that you're not going to live to 20 and that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, there were some physical issues with me, including having, by the age of 19, experienced cancer, and I was told I was going to die. So even at the age of 7, at the age of 13, I can remember different points where people say, "Oh, you know, just." What did the high school principal tell me? And I was 16 at the time. I had moved from one area of LA County from South Central to East LA. And so they had not gotten my paperwork, thank goodness. And I went in there and said, I'd like to be placed in college prep courses. I didn't even know what that meant. I just heard some students behind me talk about going to college and there's housing and there's all this fun or whatever. The fun didn't make sense to me, but the housing did. And so I just kept listening. I was a natural wiring introvert. And so I went over to the vice principal and I said, can I be in college prep courses? I didn't know what I was asking for. And he looked at me and smiled and said, oh, McDonald's is down the street. And I didn't understand that because it made no sense. I had just gotten a job at McDonald's. And so what did McDonald's have to do with my getting housing? In my mind, he was basically telling me, oh, little girl, and I was one of the few Blacks in the school, don't worry about it. You get a job at McDonald's. He didn't know I was working at McDonald's. But to his credit, as I've experienced throughout my life, I didn't waver. I sat there and just waited for him to change my courses. I wasn't astute enough to know what he was doing, thank goodness. He then, out of a bit of frustration with me, changed my courses. So I was in college prep courses and I rose to the level of expectations. Voila. I went from what were remedial courses, literally for so-called slow people. I don't even understand what that means. And I've been an educator for 40 years, to college prep and rising to the expectations and going on. And he helped me, this good old boy who basically told me, don't worry about it, and was hoping I'd go away, helped me get into that university that I got into. So it's to his credit. And so, so many different experiences over my lifetime where I experienced a detractor actually investing in me.
Okay, so here's the thing. I think that you were probably so persistent, and he just gave up, and he said, either she's going to keep bothering me the rest of my life, or I'm going to help her. So if I help her, she'll stop bothering me. But, you just touched on something, like you just went over it, and I want people to understand who you are. You're not just like a life coach that took a course, or, I mean, you have credentials. You've been in universities at high levels.
Yes.
You want to share that with us? I mean, you just said, I've been in education for 40 years.
Yeah, in California, I've had the opportunity to work in all the systems. The University of California at Riverside and at Berkeley, the California State University system at Sonoma, Stanford University in Stanford, California, the community college system in a couple of community college districts, Contra Costa and Peralta, and then as a college president for a number of years. And I just moved up, I felt I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that, and I just assumed the world was my vista. Didn't matter all the no's I kept getting. I just simply assumed that the adults didn't understand me, and so the no was for them. It wasn't for me. So I just kept chipping away. So I went from advising, recruiting, part-time teaching, directing, becoming a dean, becoming a vice president, also teaching more, and then ultimately becoming a college president. And what I say to people, and now I retired several years ago, and then had the urging from a number of different clients who were just informal clients to actual build a business. And so now I'm doing the executive coaching and the strategic planning for small and large public and private organizations. But what I say is, follow your passion, whatever that is. Even if you're not clear about it, if you feel something and it's really powerful, figure out how you can leverage that and move, because that's where your genius is. And I firmly believe that we each have genius. It doesn't mean that we understand it clearly. The degree to which we allow ourselves to invest and do things as it relates to that, the world benefits.
Yeah, so, and we share a lot of the same beliefs. Not by coincidence. I think we both put ourselves in those places where we just, believe some of the stuff that we believe. And it what's the word? It makes me feel good when somebody with your credentials, your intelligence, your down to earth, your authenticity, believes in these things about the power of energy and the universe, and the fact that, and you're just validating that what I believe is there's no coincidences, because this week, the stuff that you're talking about, this is the third time I think I'm interviewing somebody, and it has to do with and tell me if I'm right here, like the heart-mind connection.
Yes.
One of them showed me this thing called the Heart Math Institute or something.
Yes.
And it's all about, opening ourselves up. And she called it intuition. Another person called it the universe pushing us. But it was all about when we have these deep emotions, getting in touch with them. Is that right?
It absolutely is. And I'm one that is very so-called fact-driven. And I know the facts change as you get more information and intelligence, or the facts are reinforced. And so I read a lot. I especially research and try to triangulate where appropriate and useful or necessary. I also, and I've done it because I wanted to understand me. My early experiences in learning were really primarily at the university, University of California, Riverside, really caused me to think about the history class I was taking, the African American Studies class I was taking, the biology, the geology, in my mind, things were just coming together. They were integrated, and I was like, why have we separated these disciplines? They, by nature, the humanities, the English classes, the math classes, they're to be integrated. You can't understand one without some aspect of the other. So I say that to say that it really encouraged me to spend time reading, to gathering facts, and becoming more competent in my knowledge of facts to be able to apply what I know intuitively, which is a high level of cognition. Intuition is an intellectual faculty. Most people think it's a feeling. I really don't care what they think. If they use it, that's wonderful, right? And yet, and what we know from heart mind research, thank goodness to the Heart Math Institute here in California, drawing on people from across the globe, experts, scientists, is that the heart vibrates energetically, is more powerful than the brain. And the heart sends more signals to the brain, suggesting the heart is in fact directing the brain more than we think the brain is directing the heart. Remember, I said earlier, 95 to 99% of what we do is driven by our feeling mind. I call that the heart mind. It's consistent with the research that says the heart is really influencing a great deal. So when people say, oh, there's just hatred, there's just hatred. Well, that's where people's hearts are currently. They can change that. And I've witnessed it. I've witnessed the pure evil of ugliness and a man in front of me and more. And because that person chose to, I didn't make them. I didn't even care to be around that spirit. Spirit was evil, but I just gave love back. Not because I wanted to transform him, not because I thought I had the right to transform. I think people have a right to be who they are. They don't have the right to harm people. So there has to be structures. Yet the presence of my heart, according to this guy, he happens to have been a white guy, I think it was German ancestry, but he could have been anybody, right? He said, your presence just caused me to look at myself in a way that I would otherwise not look at myself. Not look at you, but look at myself. And I didn't like what I saw. And I had to figure out why I was there. And for this particular individual, it had to do with his own upbringing that caused him to have a level of hatred that was really self that he needed to give to somebody else. And I was a good target because I was female, I'm Black, he doesn't know I'm Latino, Native American, and East Indian ancestry. He doesn't know any of that. He just knew that I'm a darkie and I'm a female, and he could lash out. And I think that hurt people, people in pain, hurt people, and they cause pain towards other people. So when we are able to help people see themselves as they are and recognize they have potential that exceeds anything they can possibly imagine right now, but the answer is not outside, it's inside.
So that's beautiful. You just reminded me of a movie that I love, Coach Carter.
Yes, I remember.
Because these kids,
California, yeah.
And there's a scene in there where they say, being on the basketball team might be the greatest thing these kids ever do, and you're denying that because he wanted them to be educated and go to college. And he was like, what? And his comeback was, he was like, isn't that a shame if that's their biggest goal in life? And they all, and that was based on a true story. A lot of those guys went on to college, and that was like unheard of. But shoot, I had a question. And this is it, because we only have a couple more minutes. I want to give you a chance to, talk to your people who you want to connect with. But here's the crux of the thing. I'm an accountant. I'm a logical person. I'm fact-driven. And for my business, I focus on helping my clients monetize their business. And what I do is I say, if the results are here and if your bank account isn't going up, then there's a problem somewhere down here and we need to change it. So I actually take them backwards. And a lot of times we discover a money block, some kind of belief. And a lot of times people don't even know it. It's about, oh, money is evil.
Exactly.
Or like for me, it became, oh, if I make too much money, I'm going to have too much responsibility.
Mhm.
I'll just make enough so that I can do what I want to make. And
Yeah.
so what you're telling me is that once you could change those beliefs.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
that's the big question. Okay, now I know I could change. How? What are the steps? How do I start doing it?
Well, the first and most important thing is to be self-aware to whatever degree possible. You don't have to be perfectly, okay? And then set what I call a fantasy goal. Doesn't really matter what the fantasy goal is, as long as you can get emotionally behind that, as long as it resonates with you. Whether it is by the end of this year, we've been earning a half a million a year. Now we want to get to the $1 million benchmark, okay? And we
Okay.
have less than a year to get there, and we want to get there this year. We've never been there before. We don't even know how to get there. That's the best kind of goal, where you don't know how to get there, because you're not going to take things for granted. You're just going to assume you don't know, and you're going to be searching, going to be open, hopefully, to
Wow.
possibilities. So set that fantasy goal, whatever it is, make it discreet, and do not add a bunch of things to it. Make it one goal, preferably. If you need to add something, make it two goals max, but one is ideal. And then create it in your private environment. Don't share it with the world. It's a private goal. If you need to share it with a team, because the team is critical to manifesting that, you share it with that very insulated team and you keep it private. And then you create scripts, and you place them in strategic locations. So before you know it, you open the drawer and there it is. It's like some reminder, emotional reminder. Maybe the word joy or happiness takes you back to that critical fantasy goal. Maybe a different word, internal integrity, whatever that means to the organization. And that's someplace else, maybe on the wall, beautifully presented, or in the background. So whenever you do your Zoom meetings as a group, you see it all the time. And it reminds the group, oh, that's our goal. And the feelings that you've developed around that all emerge. The point is, you want to be on a regular basis of attending to that goal daily. And then have a ritual, a routine, literally every morning and or every evening, even if it's just for 15 minutes. And you can spare 15 minutes. All of us can, in the morning and the evening. Things that we, extra 15 minutes of sleep, wake up and go there. Have a brief statement that affirms that you've already achieved it, and you're just waiting for the manifestations, and you're doing everything you can do to let that manifestation be there in the bank account, or be there in, you fill in the blank. So literally shift your consciousness, and you don't even have to believe that $1 million is possible this year. But what you have to do is set the fantasy goal, operationalize it in these basic fun ways, and then let folks come to you. And I guarantee you, I've done it with all of my clients, and they're like, this thing works. I guarantee you, you'll wake up one day and somebody will call you and say, do you need this? You're like, how did they know we needed it? Yes.
What a coincidence, right?
Yeah. And coincidences are real, leverage them. Okay. Accidents are rare, I think. Coincidence you want. So I say clarify, write that goal, and systematically engage with the expectation that the goal will be actualized. That really, what's really critical is that you feel it. You remind yourself of the wonderful experiences you're having now, because you've already achieved that benchmark. And you're like, oh, that's counterintuitive. That's just playing a game with us. No, 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 no. What you're doing is you're communicating the truth that you have and within you to the universe. And yes, the universe is intelligent. And scientists are finding out more and more about the intelligence of the universe. They're like, what is the universe? It's everything. And we're part of it. We're not separate from it. And the universe is constantly listening to us. When we say something negative and negative thing happen, I told you it was going to happen. Well, yeah, you helped create it though. You decided
Yeah, I
it.
told you that. Yeah, well, you said it was going to happen, so you made it happen.
Yes.
But I want to make 2 points, and then we're going to have to go. I'll give you a chance to give some parting
Yes.
words of wisdom. But 2 points that you made, which are important. One, in the beginning, you said about abundance. When we get into basically the competition, there's a lack. And that's what I learned in the book, The Science of Getting Rich. And I actually got a prosperity and abundance tattooed on my arm. So,
Oh, I love it.
yeah, I would show you, but then I'd have to twist it. Just take my word for it. The other thing is, I'm listening to you, and you're like pretty much describing Napoleon Hill and
Absolutely.
his book with the definite chief aim, and then and
Absolutely.
the secret with the vision board. You just made it so much more fun.
Well, here's the thing about Napoleon Hill that I really appreciate is I don't know if you know the story between him and Andrew Carnegie. I won't go through all that, but the bottom
I
line,
know. Yeah.
Carnegie, he responded to a challenge that Andrew Carnegie gave him, and he responded in such a way that Andrew was developed a friendship with Napoleon Hill and exposed him to approximately 500 the wealthiest, most accomplished people on the planet. And Napoleon Hill spent his life interviewing those people in order to determine how their wealth, how their accomplishments, however we define achievements, how was it so? And what he found was the same consistent findings across these individuals. Now, we all know that an anecdote is an example of one experience or a few experiences. He took all of these experiences and found they were doing the same thing. Well, indeed, many of them belong to the same societies who preached, if you will, and fostered the same techniques, behaviors. So, what I've just shared with you are some of those examples. And what we're finding from research is evidence that these things work, and it doesn't matter what environment and what age, etc. Whether you're a child, whether you're an elder, whether you're someone who's a CEO, or whether you're a frontline employee doing heavy lifting for that organization or trying to build your own organization, it works.
And Wallace Waddles said, it's so funny. He says, stupid people can get rich, ugly people can get rich, people with no talent can get rich, as long as you follow these principles. And I like to add, as long as you have good intentions.
The science of getting rich is a very simplified version of all the texts that Napoleon Hill produced, and there's massive. And then people following him.
The thing is, I think the science of getting rich came out first. And what amazes me about these people is they were talking about quantum physics and spirituality.
Yes.
And
yes.
Napoleon Hill, he wrote the book Outwitting the Devil.
Yes.
And he doesn't say God in Think and Grow Rich. He calls it infinite intelligence.
Yeah, but here's the deal about his writings. In order to get published, he came up with these titles. He didn't really want those titles. He wanted to speak directly to spirit, to God, but the publishers didn't believe it would go anywhere. And so the titles of whether it's from Think and Grow Rich or it's the secrets of whatever, those were all marketing tools, right? And yet
it was a different time.
You got it. And yet I've never been religious. I respect religions, plural, across the planet. And I understand the value of religions to a lot of people's well-being and a sense of whatever it is that leads to them to being happy with their lives. Yet what I value most about religions is that aspect of spirituality that reminds us that at the essence of who we are is spirit. We're these bodies are short-term temples, and hopefully they're being treated as temples, and yet they're not part of the infinite aspect of life. We're just cycling through this, And when we understand that we're spirit beings in human form, then we begin to think about ourselves a little bit different. We're not finite, we are infinite, just like the possibilities in our lives are infinite.
And I want to close with this because you just reminded me of my favorite poem by Marianne Williamson,
Oh, I love that. I know where
which
you're going.
is, and it's like, what holds us back is our fear. But our fear is that we're capable of, I wouldn't say anything, but we're capable of a hell of a lot more than what we're probably doing. And it all takes, and it's all doable. It's been proven, and you have the tools. So I like to end with, words of wisdom. How do people get in touch with you? Who do you want to connect with?
Well, first of all, it's my honor to be here. And if you're interested in touching base with me at any time, you're welcome. You can reach me at signaturesolutionscr.com online. And you can reach me directly at my business line, 510-817-4840. That's 510-817-4840. And again, the website is Signature Solutions with an S, CR, which stands for corporate results.com. It's a pleasure.
All right. So I have some words of wisdom. If you want to up your game and take your business and your life to the next level, all you got to do are find the right clients. Okay. and I'm so glad that Dr. Webb, trusted me to be her accountant and do her stuff. And I'm not going to pay you to be my client, Dr. Webb. But if I was going to pay anybody, you're brilliant. And we went over, of course. We'll do this again, and it's
My
been fun.
pleasure.
And I don't want you to think I'm rude, but I think when I end the broadcast, we're going to be disconnected.
Absolutely.
So I'll say goodbye now, and definitely reach out to Dr. Webb. She will definitely help you up your game. All right, over and out. Joe DeChara. I will see you tonight at 8 p.m. Thank you.